We knew we wanted to upsize for a long time, and I saw it was reasonably priced. It ended up being contingent pretty quickly, and then it came back on the market.
Were there any moments when you questioned whether this was the right thing to do?
I think so.
Times, yeah.
They got an appraisal done.
Yes.
And that was well above what you guys ultimately paid for it.
Right.
You saw the history on Zillow. It went through a most recent price reduction, which was actually $5.
Yes.
So what I want to do in this interview is talk about basically like the journey that you guys are on, because I do know that a lot of people are puzzled and afraid about, especially, I mean, a challenge to buy a home, period. It's doubly kind of fearful, try to sell and buy at the same time. And in your case, you're sort of upsizing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to just ask you a series of questions that'll kind of take the viewer through that journey and how you guys are kind of handling it.
Okay.
So the first question is, what did your daily life look like in your current home that you're moving from off Traditions Drive? What does that look like? Or maybe...
The house is way too small. We're kind of always on top of each other.
So that leads into the next question, which was really just what are some of the challenges or limitations you face at your current residence? Storage.
Definitely storage.
Yeah.
We were always in the same room, pretty much. Also.
Yeah.
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 And a bigger yard is always nice with kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got two girls.
Amelia and Violet.
Violet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 and 4.
2 and 4.
Yes.
And you don't have a garage at your
no
current.
garage, no basement.
And I know a garage was something that was seemed like important to you one of the first places we looked. And why is the garage important?
Just a place to work on stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in the morning, in the winter, we're always having to clean off our vehicles, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So so I imagine that like you bought the current home off Traditions how long ago?
2017, so 7 years ago.
7 years,
yes.
Okay. And so what's the difference in your life now compared to then? Because obviously the home suit your needs then.
Yes. So we were in a long distance relationship at the time, so it was just me buying the house. So plenty of space for me.
Yeah.
A small yard to maintain, no driveway to plow.
No kids at that time.
No kids, yeah.
Okay.
And then he moved up shortly after, and it was still enough space for us. And then we had our first, and then our second was a surprise, so we didn't, plan on needing all that space. And I feel like we knew we wanted to upsize for a long time. We started looking right before COVID, and then obviously things changed a lot, and we kind of gave up because of prices and rates and all that changed with that.
Yeah. So what really brought it to a head? I mean, I remember I got a call from you, Chris. It seemed like I was driving out by my folks, and I remember it vaguely being like, I want to say July, August sometime. And you were thinking about it. I think you were kind of feeling me out at that point. Randy had recommended me. And then, we kind of, I think I set you up on getting automatic notifications or something, or you were just looking on your own.
Yeah, I think they went to her.
I don't think we connected. But then you called and said, we may want to make an offer on this home out East Bay Way, in Holiday Hills area, and that was right next to your folks.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would have been convenient in terms of because your mom helps you with.
Yes.
Yeah. When I stopped by to try to get some drone footage of the Traditions.
Think about it. Maybe they're there.
I met her
Yes.
there. At that point, what changed between the time we initially talked and then I see you on Holiday Hills? I mean, in terms of your sense of urgency of wanting to make the move.
I think that I drive by that house a lot, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how much that house is, and I saw it was reasonably priced. It ended up being contingent pretty quickly, and then it came back on the market.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, maybe it's meant to be. I should go look at that house. And then I
Okay.
think just looking at a house, I was like, man, we could really use more space.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So really? It was,
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was the fact that you'd kind of given up
Yes.
based on price, but then this home being so close to your
Yes.
folks
And pretty reasonably priced
pretty
and a
reasonably
lot of
priced,
space.
triggered you. And
Yeah.
then looking at it, then it was like, whoa, there's a lot more
Yeah.
space here.
Yeah. And then I was like, well,
And
let's
then
see
that
what
renews
else.
some
had-
interest. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you and I looked at, that was a huge garage on that one.
Yeah, there's some issues with that garage.
Yeah, and then, well, there were some issues all the way around,
Yeah.
So some of the, I know, I got the sense that you were excited about that from until
garage? Yeah.
until we figured out the issues. But yeah, the garage, we ended up FaceTiming my son. He looked in, we actually pulled back the siding a little bit to look in and found that there weren't cross bracing. And then we chatted up the next door neighbor, and he told me that it had been a rental for years and years, and that's honestly always a little bit of a red flag for me, in terms of renters just don't take care of homes like the homeowners do, and that's why insurance rates for renters is always higher.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so we ultimately then moved off of that one, and then found this one on Beverly.
Yes.
That you just closed on.
Yes, yeah.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that, for sure. Yeah. So, do you remember when the first time you really felt like the home on Traditions doesn't fit your needs? I mean, I guess you've been dealing with this. If you said before COVID,
Yeah.
it's been 4 or 5 years that
Yes.
you felt like it hasn't met your needs.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So even before the Violet.
Yes.
younger
Even
one?
before Violet
Yeah.
was born, we were ready for a bigger
Wow.
house. Yes.
Okay. You guys are perseverant.
Yes.
Yeah. You're
Yes.
not impulsive at all if you're waiting that long.
Yes.
Frugal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
frugal. Well, that's one thing I certainly detected how
Yeah.
frugal you were, and that
Yeah.
ended up really paying off.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that when we talk more about
Yeah.
the process of buying Beverly. But
And just to speak more to that, we looked into like putting up a garage and making more space, and we were quoted like half the price that I paid for the house to build a garage. So it's like, why not look for a house with more space?
yeah, I'm always, especially I run into this with first-time home buyers who think they want to crack a code on how they could make things more affordable, and they start looking into new construction, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
sorry, you're not going to outsmart that.
Right,
New
right.
construction is always going to be the most expensive way to go.
Yes.
Now, it ultimately may make sense,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be a less expensive way of accomplishing it.
Yeah.
Unless you're building a tiny, tiny house or something.
Right.
But per square foot wise. So what drew your attention to Beverly? I mean, the house that you just closed on.
I really like the big yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The extra bedroom is great, and the garage.
Yeah.
The subdivision where the kids can ride bikes around, and it's not on a busy street. Whereas that one on Holiday Hills was on a busy street. So
Yeah.
A lot of space for the reselling.
Yeah, which is what you do on eBay, with reselling being what you're doing. Yeah. What concerns or fears did you have before starting on the process?
Money, mostly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
just the cost of buying a new house
Yeah.
at this time. You know?
Yeah, so basically that speaks to your frugality.
Yes,
You're
yeah.
most concerned about wanting to get that extra space, but not wanting to way overspend to achieve it. Okay.
Yeah, because our house, the house that we're in now was built in the early 2000s. It's in decent shape, so a lot of the houses now are much older and need a lot of work for a higher price. So we just wanted to kind of, if we were going to get more space, we didn't want a total fixer-upper.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any moments when you questioned whether this was the right thing to do?
I think so.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Just, you lay awake at night and you're like, is this the right?
And what was there anything in particular that triggered you?
The wood foundation was the biggest concern, but
Yeah.
looking into it, it seems to be fine.
Yeah. And a part of that concern was that, like the one that we ultimately moved off on by Holiday Hills, that had been on the market and then and gone under contract and then came back.
Yes.
Same thing with this one that you
Yes.
bought on Beverly. It went under contract, came back on, and it kind of had a little bit of a cloud over it.
Right.
And as a result of that, and then one of the things that there was something about a concern about whether there was water intrusion into the basement, and then that's what led to part of the concern of the wood, the all-weather wood foundation. And then there was some follow-up that the seller did with a foundation expert, shared that information with us. We did some digging into finding out, number one, what it appraised. It
Yes.
appraised for well over, because it went that far with the original buyer who ended up backing out. That went to it, they got an appraisal done,
Yes.
and that was well above what you guys ultimately paid for it.
Right.
That was nice to hear, but we also needed some assurances that you
Yes.
right, so that we ended up getting an inspection from a different inspector.
Yes.
And why don't you talk about these, what your impressions were of everything of the inspection process?
Well, they seem very thorough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice, very personable while we were there.
Yeah.
Answered all our questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend, in fact, I'm going to be doing an interview with the
Yes.
owner of Traverse City Home Inspections.
Yeah.
And they're kind of known, I hear from other agents, well, I don't like them because they're deal killers. They find out too much that's wrong. And I'm like, hey, I want my clients to know everything. And if the deal's killed because of it, great.
Yeah.
I was very surprised when I saw he checked all the appliances and all that. Also, I thought it was just going to be just the home.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now this is maybe a little bit of an advertisement, but this is so when did you decide to work with me, and why as your agent?
When you first came out to Holiday Hills, because we looked at that with the seller's agent initially,
Yeah.
and Chris right away said, let's call Sander and have him come out and just get an objective opinion, somebody who's not involved in the sale of the house. And you were super thorough and spent a bunch of time with us there, and were very honest about your thoughts on the house. And
Yeah, you seemed very knowledgeable.
yes, yeah.
And you weren't just trying to make the sale.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I felt like you were working in our best
Yeah.
interest for sure.
And when I don't know, I at least know who to call.
Exactly,
Right? So
yes.
I didn't know anything about this cross bracing that
Yes.
my son,
Yes.
but he's a licensed builder, so it's nice to be able to FaceTime
Right.
him and ask him those
Yes.
things. And that's the thing, is that to try to learn like everything that Randy knows,
Right.
never going to happen.
Yes.
But yeah, one
You
of the
always know
things
who to call.
one of the things I pride myself is identifying people that know a lot more about a particular area than
Yes.
I, and then networking on
Right.
behalf of my clients. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Can you share any example or moment where you felt particularly supported, either by me or Randy or any of the people that kind of were your part of your team in making this happen? Which is, by the way, at the moment of this interview, you have purchased Beverly, but we haven't sold Traditions yet.
Yes.
So my work is definitely not done here
Right.
on your behalf.
Yes.
But in terms of the purchase on Beverly, any time that you felt particularly supported or encouraged, or through the process.
For me, it's been throughout the whole thing. The communication has been great. Anytime we have a question, someone is available or finds somebody who knows the answer. Both you and Randy have gone above and beyond anything, all the extras, the plowing, the moving truck. I mean, there's
That's
so.
right, yeah. Randy does the moving covered wagon, I call it, or
Yes.
closed trailer. Yeah, he'll do the tax. You'll
Yes.
take a picture of your tax assessment when you get that. And then, I went out and plowed Beverly
Yes.
a couple of times. Number
Yes.
one, to make sure they got their stuff out.
Yes,
Because
yeah.
they had moved, it was vacant, and they
Yes.
weren't keeping up with the plowing.
Right. Yeah,
But
so both parties have just gone above and beyond to
Yeah.
make this a great process, I think.
Yeah. The radon test, going
Oh,
through with the camera.
But I still owe you the finding the corner markers.
Yeah.
We'll do that together, and
Sounds good.
maybe I'll throw my drone up and we'll get some air shots.
Yeah, you knew the measurements of the house when we wanted to look at getting flooring, and you just You were
I use my
prepared with
Giraffe
everything.
360
Yes.
to do that. That's same. I use that. I don't know if you saw that.
A little bit.
A little bit like
Yeah.
Traditions.
Yes.
But that's a nice tool, and it gives 98% accuracy on measurements, which is probably more than you're going to do running a tape.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I mean, so it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when you officially began the process, which I guess would have been around the time of looking at the Holiday Hills?
Yes.
I mean, you really began wanting it prior to COVID, but
Yes.
you really didn't kind of get going in earnest until you saw that house
Correct.
by folks.
Yes. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
How did you feel when you officially began? I mean, when you felt like, okay, we're really doing this.
Yeah, I think just excited at a fresh start and more space, and our kids are pretty young, so this is going to be where they grow up. So
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
They're excited for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, right next to Silver Lake Elementary too. So I don't know
Yes.
if you plan on sending them there, but it's a good little school.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during this whole process?
Probably getting our house ready to list.
Yeah.
Just all.
You guys are busy.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 girls, 2 careers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Lots of eBay stuff in the house.
Yeah.
We had a shed to take down. So yeah, I think just
The moving process.
the moving process. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and hopefully Randy's covered wagon will help you with
Yes.
that a little bit. Yeah. Was there any moment where you felt like it might not work out?
I don't think a moment where we thought it wouldn't.
Just questioning. We never actually definitively thought it wasn't going to work out.
Okay.
Well, maybe with the offer process, we did go back and forth quite a bit with the offer process.
On Beverly.
On Beverly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's walk through that a little bit. So they had it listed at
339.
339.
It
We
but it
are-
started at 4.
Yeah, because you saw the history on Zillow.
Yes, it had been
so
on the market a while.
Yeah, and it went through a most recent price reduction, which was actually $5.
Yes.
Which was weird. Like, we were puzzled by that whole
Yes.
thing, But it showed up as a price reduction.
Yes,
so maybe
exactly.
That was the strategy.
Right.
Yeah, 500 pennies.
Yes.
Reduction. But so then we offered under 300.
Yes.
Okay. And then they countered. Yeah, they countered at 330.
Yes.
We ultimately settled at 323.
Correct. Yes.
And during that process of when we were going back and forth, the listing agent said, well, we have an appraisal that it appraised for over $350,000. And I asked, well, I'd like to see a copy of that. That actually turned into a whole thing. That maybe they weren't supposed to share that with us.
Right.
But we did find it, and that was confirmed when you had your appraisal as part of the closing process. Right?
Yes.
What did
Yes.
it appraise at? Yeah, 365 was the previous one. Yeah.
I remember numbers.
Yeah. Well, that right there shows you how much appraisals can vary.
Yes,
Too. I mean,
yeah.
so yeah, it's fortunate that one's more. But so we were talking about the biggest challenges. Were there any unexpected challenges or surprises? And so you said the offering process.
Yeah, the offer process, I think Chris got a little tired out by.
Yeah.
Back in the countering.
Yes.
The countering,
Yes.
yeah.
By the end, we were just like, we'll send this offer. If they take it, good. If not, we'll be done.
So
Yeah.
that might be the only time we thought maybe it won't work out if they don't
Yeah.
accept our counter. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's actually one of the things. I just shot a video on advising sellers on negotiations, and so this will be you're going to turn into a seller.
Yes.
Now, and that's one thing of that you can go back and forth theoretically forever.
Right.
But in reality, it doesn't work because people get tired.
Yes.
They wear out and they get discouraged, and it just starts to wear on everybody involved.
Yes.
So. Yeah, so ultimately, as far as that process goes, then they agreed to the 323. Then we got the inspection. Then we went through what we already talked about, a little bit of concern over the wood basement.
Yeah.
Everything else pretty much checked out. I mean, I think the roof they said the roof's going to need something probably within 5 years. Yeah, and then we moved from that to the appraisal. The appraisal came in 357, we think.
Somewhere in there, yes.
And so by buying this house, you're getting an automatic lot of equity.
Yes.
And I think that's the key thing that you guys did that speaks to the frugality, is that you weren't afraid to keep looking, even though there was this cloud or stigma on this house now.
Right.
Because that's automatically what will happen, is that people will make assumptions. Well, this was on the market or it was under contract. Now it's back on the market. Why? What's wrong with the home?
Right.
Well, how you find out what's wrong with the home is you get an inspection.
Yes.
We went in before the inspection. We did the radon. We did used the infrared camera, looked at some things. Everything checks out. I mean, the facts were that there weren't things wrong. I mean, there's always something wrong with every house. No house is perfect. But it wouldn't be anything to have really justified selling for, almost $30,000, well, more than $30,000 less than what it appraised for.
Right.
And so you guys were really successful buyers.
Yes.
I mean, that's not the norm in the Traverse City area at all. So
and I feel like,
congratulations on that.
I feel like that's what drew me to the house. I saw it had been on the market a while. It kept reducing in price, and I thought maybe we can get a good deal on this house. So.
Yeah, and I think you ultimately did for sure. So we talked about ultimately when you felt like it might not work out. What gave you the courage to keep going when we kind of face the obstacles that that you face?
I think that once you get that bug of being in a bigger house and what that can mean once you make it your own, gave me the motivation to keep going. It's worth going through all that to get the house you want in the end.
Yep. And that's what I found with a lot of buyers, that and it's similar to what you talked about. There are lots of them that actually hesitate. They don't want to bother me looking at houses, but it's like until you actually start going, it's hard to see. You need to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Whatever that light, which that light differs from person to person. But
we were the same way in the beginning. We thought we were bothering you looking at multiple houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at.
Because we went out to Williamsburg.
Yeah.
We went to an open house in Interlaken.
Oh yeah.
Did I ever make you feel like you were bothering?
Not at all.
Okay.
That's just us.
Yeah, it's like the ultra politeness and I really have to work to overcome that. First of all, because it's true, I love showing houses.
Well, that's good.
I love seeing the different. So even if we obviously you want to be courteous to sellers and not just overshow if somebody's not really interested. But I always say to my buyers, if you're at all interested, let's go take a look.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have been the first time when people were kind of lukewarm on it, and then they see it in person. And they're like, oh, I really like this.
That's what happened to Chris. He was not looking at the pictures of Beverly. He was like, I don't know. And then we went and he's like, I want this house. So
Yeah, you got to feel for the yard probably better when
you
saw it in person.
Definitely the first thought was the yard.
Yeah. How do you feel now? I mean, we were over there. We did the pre-closing walkthrough. You guys were looking at what your flooring samples that you're thinking about doing. How does it feel now that you've I guess it officially won't close till Monday.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, you have a new house.
Yeah, we're excited.
We're excited. A lot of work. We're excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the house on Traditions was never going to be our forever house, so I didn't do a ton of work. So I'm excited to kind of redo this as, exactly how we want it.
Yep. Looking back, what's the most significant thing or significant things you learned from this experience?
For me, I think it's probably everything with the mortgage with Randy. I had no idea how any of that worked before. Like, it was lender I worked with before was just sign this paper. You know what I mean? There was no education on the process. It was just sign here and...
Randy likes to talk.
Yes. So lots of education for sure.
And that's the thing with a mortgage broker like Randy. He has more options available too.
Yes.
I think that the options that are given to some of the loan officers are so limited that there's not much education for them
That
to
makes
do.
sense.
Period.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anything else that you learned from the experience, or
Just how much work is put into purchasing a house.
yeah, it's like having a second part-time.
Yeah,
job
you
or
think you're
something,
you're just buying a new house, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of steps in that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone considering making a similar change, like a similar move, buying and then also selling a home at the same time?
Get a realtor you trust.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And what does that mean when you say trust? I mean, there's not like, it's not like a realtor can steal money from you.
Right.
So what does trusting a realtor really mean?
I think a lot of realtors are just trying to make a sale. It seems like you actually care. You have a lot of built-in services also besides just selling a home.
And I think it's a scary process to buy a house. So we don't know all the ins and outs of everything. So you want somebody who's going to have your back through the offer process, who just knows what they're doing to get the best deal when you're buying a house, and then throughout the whole process to make you feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing.
Yep. Awesome. Is there anything different that you would have done along the way?
I don't think so. I think waiting out and finding the proper home, feeling like we were getting a deal was probably the best option for us.
Yep. So you're just saying that your patience paid off.
Yes.
Yeah. So that might be another piece of advice to other buyers, is that to be patient. Don't start feeling guilty about making your realtor show you more houses. Just be patient and actually find what you want.
Right.
And, yeah. These other questions are. You were going to say something, Chris?
On average, how many houses do you show to a person before they make a purchase?
Yeah, on average, I mean, it's probably 7 to 8. There was one time where I showed one was the only showing.
Yeah.
So it's usually 4 or more. Very rarely do I show fewer than 4.
Yeah.
Unless there's like in the case this was there can be cases where people want to really buy the next door house or something.
Right.
So they're not really looking in the same way that you guys are looking.
Right.
They're interested in a particular piece of property because it's right next to theirs or adjacent to their home, versus it's time to upsize, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So you've heard some nice things about the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what are you looking forward to as far as what you've heard about the neighborhood?
Just the safety of the girls being able to run and play outside and ride their bikes and hopefully make some new friends and walk to school.
Tradition seems like, so I was out when I went out and tried to get some good drone footage when we haven't had any good. The sun hasn't been out except for that one day. And by the way, it went back under the clouds. So I had like a 5-minute window where I got good sunshine. But I'm glad I got it because it does look so much better on that. But when I was doing that, people were driving in and out, and everybody, and I was trying to be conscious of not being in their way.
Yeah.
And these people couldn't have been more polite.
Yes.
I mean, it really does seem like a nice...
Hi,
to me, another guy when I was there, the day that Shannon took the family photos and stuff, there was a guy coming down with his dogs, and the drone frightened the dogs, which it took Dee Dee about 1.5 years to get used to the drone.
Yeah.
It's like a big bee or something.
Right.
It frightens them, but
but
he couldn't. I apologize. He's like, oh, no problem. And so, anyways, I know this is the second part of the journey, is getting ready to sell Traditions.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that neighborhood. What are some things that you'll miss about that neighborhood?
I think definitely this, like the girls walking on the sidewalks, they know all the neighbors. The neighbors give them candy and treats, and
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, every dog that walks by, they want a pet and they're friends with, and
they pet every dog.
Yes. But at the same time, the houses are, as much as we love our neighbors, the houses are very close together. It'll be nice to have more privacy and just more space where you don't feel like
Yeah.
you're right on top of your neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of that's just the neighborhood design.
Correct.
Those homes are close
Yes.
to one another versus you're still going to a subdivision, but yeah, a lot more yard
Yes.
than what you guys are used to.
Yes.
Instead of playing on the sidewalk, they'll be playing in our yard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything that you want to share that I haven't asked you about?
Not that I can think
so.
of.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. We've got some more paperwork to do to get
Yes.
your house listed and
Yeah.
get this thing sold for you. And
Yes.
then, the plan, by the way, is what that you talked a little bit with Randy is that in this case, a lot of times people can't buy the home until they sell their existing one.
Oh, yes.
You were able to do that
Yes.
because of your consistent frugality.
Yes.
You guys are doing it the smart way and the disciplined way. So kudos to you. But then when you sell traditions, you're going to take the equity, and you talk to Randy about recasting
Yes.
the loan. What do you understand about what that means, the recasting? That's confusing to some people, and so maybe I'm testing Randy's teaching ability
Yes.
here. But
So we're hoping to put a large chunk of money down toward the principal to bring our monthly payment down. Yes. So
Yeah.
we didn't put 20% down initially because we didn't sell our house first. But once we do, then we'd like to get to that 20% point.
so you don't have to pay the private mortgage insurance.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Yeah. And that was, by the way, the smartest way, I think, to go about. If we would have, and we forgot that when we were talking about the offers. Our initial offer for the 297 on Beverly, we did have it in there that it was contingent upon the sale of your home.
Yes.
And that was part of the back and forth, I think, that you found a little exhausting, which I appreciate, which was, okay, they countered at 330 and take away that contingency. And then it was like, well, if we're going to pay, that much, then we want the security of being able to sell
Right.
our home. And then that's when we discussed, there are points in a negotiation, I think, where it's very important to do perspective taking, I call it. Look at it from their perspective.
Right.
Ultimately, from their perspective, from the seller's perspective, this has been on the market for a long, long time. They had a deal fall through. The chances of them really accepting something contingent upon the sale of your home were pretty slim. And if so, you're going to pay more.
Right. Yeah.
For that kind of security. I remember that part. We ultimately took that contingency off, obviously.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then now we're getting ready, and we're going to stop this interview so we can get that paperwork done and
Yes.
get you guys selling that property and
All
move on.
right.
So
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.